I am Blake Connie, and I will be presenting with Wendy Spalding. She'll jump in at the end. She is a guru of all things data. And so here goes. So yeah, we'll be talking about safe school reporting. So the data that goes into Infinite Campus that surrounds all things behavior, as well as behavior reports and end of year reporting, and how to clean that up. The goal is to talk to administrators or anyone at the district or school level who inputs behavior data into Infinite Campus, as well as anyone who is responsible for looking at that data to ensure that it is accurate and clean by the end of the school year, or by the reporting date to the end of the summer. There are a bunch of resources available on KDE's website. There are links in this presentation. Obviously, you can't click those if you're watching a video, but if you go to the KDE website and do just a search in the search box for behavior data or behavior standards, you will get to a site that has video training as well as a lot of guidance document on how to either enter data or clean that data up. If you are not currently getting communications, typically from Wendy, about behavior data or safe schools data, you can get signed up through the person role manager at your district. So each district can enter their own safe school administrator to receive those updates. Again, that's through the KDE website. So if you go to KDE website and do a search for person role manager, it will get you to that application. And someone at your district will be responsible for entering those people.
Blake, I'll add to that that's usually the district WAPOC. So if you go to open house, you can search for your district and choose who your WAPOC is, and that will be the person that will be able to access person role manager and add you to that distribution list.
Thanks, Wendy. Yeah, in order to get to the Safe Schools report, you'll go through Infinite Campus. You'll use the pathway of clicking on the KY state reporting, click on the Safe Schools report. You want to make sure that individuals in your schools and at your district have the appropriate access to get that report. So, obviously administrators in the building, central office, and then anyone at the school that may be doing the reports to make sure they're accurate or look for warnings on a regular basis, which we'll talk about in a few minutes. So we recommend that you look at this on a regular basis rather than wait till the end of the school year or even end of the semester. Many schools look at this on a monthly basis, so they'll have someone in the office at each school pull this report and look for warnings or errors, again, so they can be addressed while it's still fresh in the mind of the administrator or person entering that data. You can extract this data as well to look for just how you as a school can better serve your students, looking for trends in the data or areas, through your PBIS team to find, what's happening and where it's happening so it can be addressed as effectively as possible in the building. And then at the end of the year, we require that you review that data for accuracy before it's submitted and handed over to really us, where it then goes public through our Safe Schools reports. Okay. Our Safe School reports are at the end of the year. We release our safe school data as required by KRS. The events that we are required to include are assault and violence, bullying, harassment, drugs, alcohol, tobacco, and any type of weapon. On top of that, the following resolutions have to be included as well, and that is expulsions, out-of-school suspension, in-school removal, or in-district removal. From in-district was added a few years ago. And again, that is when you assign a removal or a consequence for a student that is removed from the building for a short period of time, but not permanently assigned to another setting. For example, many schools have alternative school settings that they could assign a student to for a few days in lieu of out-of-school suspension. Anytime there's restraint, seclusion, corporal punishment, or interim alternative education setting removals, which is for special ed students only. So any types of those resolutions are included in our Safe Schools report. We break that data down by race, socioeconomic status, sex, as well as grade level when we report that out. Another great tool especially for district special education would be to click on that active special ed at the time of the incident. So on top of the report, the behavior report, if this box is clicked, it would then allow the director of special ed to see any type of discipline that is affecting or assigned to students with IEPs at the time of the incident. The data validation report, so this is the report that will be done on a regular basis. It will show errors and warnings. Errors that show up must be resolved. So those have to be resolved or else it will not be included in district reports. Warnings should be resolved. So they're not as severe, but still should be resolved. When you do that the data validation report, these warnings and errors will be hyperlinked. So here's a sample of what that would look like. So this report has 0 errors or 0 warnings. You can, on the right side of each line, it tells you how many errors or warnings would fall under each category. And if there was an error or warning, it would be hyperlinked as well. And we'll jump into kind of what those typical errors and warnings are, and why they show up and how they can be addressed. So in error 1, there's a state resolution without a start or end date or start end time. Again, these things have to be included. The common issue there is that the AM/PM designation is not assigned. So make sure you're double checking that. Error 3, so it does not have a participant selected. Sometimes we see this when, in the narrative, the student's name is used, but it's not linked to a participant. So behavior events must be linked to at least one participant, can be linked to multiple.
Can I add to that, Blake?
Absolutely,
real quick? Yeah. So this one is this is a rare error that you will receive, but it occurs if administrator or someone in the school starts a behavior referral that has an event that is Safe Schools qualifying. So say they start a behavior referral that involved bullying, but they didn't complete it, they stopped working on it, didn't add a participant to it, and then went on with their work and maybe added a new behavior referral and completed it later. So this is just showing that this was a Safe Schools qualifying event that didn't have a participant attached. The only way to resolve that is if the person who started that referral has to log into their Infinite Campus, go to the behavior management tool, and actually delete or complete that behavior referral. So it has to be done by the person who started it. I've gotten that question quite a bit lately, so I thought I'd throw that in there.
Thanks, Winnie. So error 4 is students have a resolution for a behavior incident that occurred outside of the selected calendar or enrollment. So the resolution must overlap with their enrollment. Sometimes we see that come up when a student unenrolls, or if the resolution is put in at a future date and not backdated to the correct dates of the resolution. So suspension must also be a attendance record as well. And so if we see suspension attendance without a corresponding resolution of SSP3, which is out of school suspension, this will show up. So maybe the person who is responsible for attendance entered in that student as suspended that day. However, the resolution in Infinite Campus was not entered as a suspension for that date. It needs to match. I will say that attendance is the authority, so that needs to be accurate, and everything else needs to match that attendance. So check-in, check-in out times, the resolution should match whatever the attendance says. Error 6, students have a behavior response of restraint or seclusion without a corresponding state resolution of restraint or seclusion. So each response must have its own corresponding state resolution for restraint or seclusion. An incident could have multiple, so if multiple restraints or seclusion events were happening during those responses, they all must have a corresponding resolution. For the interim alternative education setting, so this is for students who have IEPs. The maximum length is 45 days. If it exceeds that, you will get an error 7. So again, these are only for special education students who are assigned the interim alternative education. All right, so now we're talking about warnings. So again, warnings are a step down. These things should be addressed to be accurate. So warning 1 is out of school suspension, exists outside of a suspension attendance. So again, there's a suspension assigned, but attendance doesn't match that. So the attendance needs to match both. So if the student is not there due to suspension, the attendance needs to say so, to the minute. If there's a behavior resolution or a restraint without a response, sometimes those take some time to get put in. They should put in within 24 hours, but it's a more involved form. So you want to make sure that those are entered in. As I mentioned earlier, each resolution or each response could have, you could have multiple responses. So resolution or warning 3, resolution start date is not within the district enrollment. So again, the student needs to be enrolled when the resolution is assigned. Sometimes, again, a student might withdraw before the resolution is determined. Parent gets upset, pulls the student out before the resolution was enacted. In which case that could be disregarded. So when you are doing the Safe Schools detail review, so pulling all events in the Safe Schools report, these are some helpful hints here. You want to look for outliers in the data, so you want to look for things that just don't make sense. Or, for example, if you filter on arrest equals 1, so there's an arrest selection was chosen on the resolution. You want to make sure that it's for a relevant event, not something like, skipping class. You want to make sure that if it is arrested, it's on something that would make sense. You can filter states event codes for like assault violations or some of those bigger events, which we discussed, showing up on the state schools report, to make sure that those match grade level, things that, again, would make sense. I'm not saying a kindergarten student wouldn't be in trouble for assaulting, but you want to make sure that that would be more unlikely than an older student. Looking at sub-reports, so you can do sub-reports for weapons. Again, you want to make sure that's accurate. So these are all the ones that the Safe School report is required to include. So again, kind of a step up in ensuring that they're accurate. Looking at tobacco, you want to make sure that the drug type selection for all tobacco or nicotine reports. The alcohol, you want to ensure that drug type is selected as well. And if you are looking at drugs, you want to make sure that the drug type is selected. Again, if it's filed as drugs, it should not be tobacco, nicotine, or alcohol. It should be a different type of drug, because those have their own drop-down selection.
I will add to that, and probably should have put it on this slide, that we have added an edit check to the data entry side of things. So it should help with the accuracy of this data, that if they select tobacco as an event, they have to select tobacco or nicotine as the type. So hopefully this data will be a little cleaner this year because of that edit check on the data entry side of things.
Thanks, Wendy. Always making it easier for everyone. I like it. Now, when you're looking at resolutions, so you want to make sure that restraint seclusion, the lengths are appropriate. So make sure those times are accurate. And again, those who are trained should stay within their time limits. When you filter for expulsion, you want to make sure that none of the students who are expelled have IEPs. You want to check that they, for any kind of corporal punishment, if that's showing up, which very, very, very few cases are using corporal punishment in this case. You just want to make sure that someone didn't accidentally select that at your school, unless it is allowed by board policy. The expulsion length, you want to make sure that it's a maximum of 175 days for one school year. And for out of school suspensions, 10 days should be the maximum. So again, these are all things that you can put into a spreadsheet and go down to make sure that these are accurate, filtering for the type of resolution.
A clarification that on the expulsion, that's a student with an IEP cannot have an expulsion without services. We do have expulsions with services, but they should be limited as well.
Yep. Thanks. So the resolution length, as I mentioned, if you filter just that, if you're looking at just the column for resolution length, you can see that, up to 10 days for out of school or in district. Again, 10 days of missing classes, the limit. The Safe Schools aggregate report, again, this is the report that the district can look at. And this is used to verify the Safe Schools data, which Wendy will talk about in just a moment. The schools and districts can use the aggregate report. And again, this is what will show up on the school report card. So you want to make sure it's accurate using the timeline that we'll offer in just a minute. KD has guidance for carryover expulsion. So the link here, or if you go to our website, you can also find guidance for the carryover expulsion, should you need it. It talks about how to enter, how to set it up, how to, in cases of switching schools or districts, how to enter that. And so this is not going to be used extremely often, but if you need it, the report or the guidance can be found on the KDE website. How we use data. So again, the data belongs to the district until it is reviewed and vetted and then handed over to the state. It is publicly reported on the school report card for schools as well as for districts in the state. Data is school safety data is handed over to the Center for School Safety, the Office of Educational Accountability, as required by KRS. The federal reporting requires us to report students with disabilities, especially looking at expulsions or suspensions, and any type of weapon is also federally reported. Wendy.
Okay, I'll jump on here. I know we've only got a minute, and the Safe Schools reporting timeline, the date of reviewing your errors and your warnings and resolving all of that cleanup is it's open May 1, but as Blake said, be reviewing that data at any point in time. It closes June 28th. By June 28th, the superintendent and the director of special education must verify that the data is accurate, and that those will be two different surveys that will be sent out. July 1, we will extract the Safe Schools data from IC State Edition and the reporting warehouse. What is going to be a little different this year is because we have a new school report card vendor, so we may not be verifying the aggregate data as we have done in the past within a school report card secure site. That's going to be a big change from the previous years. What we will utilize will be those aggregate report details that are available in Infinite Campus on the Safe Schools Report landing page. So I'll be sending out really good instructions and guidance on how to do that and to make sure that your data is accurate. There unfortunately will probably not be a view in the secure site early enough for us to meet our deadline of August 30th for distributing the data to outside entities. So more to come on that, but that is a difference in our reporting timeline that I wanted to make sure that we discussed. And I know we're out of time, but as always, you can contact me or Blake Connie anytime for any questions that you have, or if you need help cleaning up any data or get stuck on any student within your error reports.
Thank you both. There were a few questions. Do go out to Go Soapbox. Wendy has answered those questions within the Go Soapbox